So tonight I'm going to make some apple pie cider. I realized going back through my videos, it's probably been 9 years since I really went over how I made an apple pie cider, and even then it was just as part of a brewer's log. I've never actually documented how I make apple pie cider, and even back then I made it quite a bit different than I do now. So let's start off by, I usually take a gallon of brown sugar cider that has already been racked. So all three of these were racked tonight. And now I'm going through the process of turning them from just a brown sugar cider into an apple pie cider. So in this process, I end up adding 4 ingredients. One of them is ceylon cinnamon. Second one is nutmeg. Then I use white cardamon. And then finally I use, not nutmeg, this one is cloves. So get a better view on some of these. So originally I just used ground spices in this, but I found that the flavor fell out really fast and wasn't as strong as I really liked. So over the years I went to, and that back then I was using standard cinnamon as you find nowadays, but I found that it can contain gluten, so that's why I changed to ceylon cinnamon, and I also like the flavor of ceylon cinnamon better than I did the other cinnamon, which is actually made from a Chinese bark that is not quite the same. So I found I like this better. Nutmeg, I went from using ground nutmeg to using whole nutmegs and just grinding off or using a microplane to get off as much as I need from that. I changed from using standard cardamon, which I found out is green cardamon, to using white cardamon. And when I found out that most of the apple pies I was used to as a kid were probably made with white cardamon, because this is more of a German and European style cardamon versus the green being an Asian Indian style cardamon. The cardamon flavor between the white and the green is quite a bit different. This is just definitely much sweeter and not as peppery. I also have black cardamom that I've started using in a couple different recipes, which is smoky, but it is more the peppery like the green cardamom, not like the white cardamom. The biggest problem with the white cardamom is those are little bitty pods, and they don't produce a whole lot of seed. And I need 1 gram is what I found on that. And then cloves you can find almost anywhere, and I don't need a whole lot of this. The one nice thing about this is that going to this method, whereas I used to use a teaspoon of cinnamon, I used a half a teaspoon of nutmeg, I used a 1/4 teaspoon of cardamom, and I used a pinch of the cloves. Now, because I'm using the whole, it's a lot easier to do it by grams. So now I use 1 gram of the ceylon cinnamon, which I found is about half of a stick of cinnamon. I use 1.5 grams of nutmeg. This is harder to say because it kind of depends on how thick the nut is and what's on it. So this is just I microplane it down until I've got the 1.5 grams on the scale. These I weigh out about 2 grams to begin with, and then I pull out all the seeds, and then I make sure I've got about 1 gram. It's really hard to say because of the differences in the size of the pods. And for nutmeg, a pinch is really, I end up grabbing probably 2 or 3 nutmegs, and I throw them all into a spice grinder. This is the spice grinder that I'll be using tonight. And I usually get all my different ingredients weighed out and thrown in there, and then I grind them all together before dumping them into the cider. So let me get my stuff measured out and get ground.